Well, let's return now to those comments from the Israeli Prime Minister, who has accused the leaders of the UK, France and Canada of being on the wrong side of history for criticising Israel's approach in Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu linked their criticism to the killings of 2 Israeli embassy workers in Washington, D.C. Let's bring in our security and defence analyst, Michael Clarke, who's back in the studio with us. We only let you go out a minute ago, Michael, but you're back in again. These are pretty incendiary comments, aren't they, from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Yeah, I mean, the killing of these 2 embassy officials in Washington is very shocking. But from a timing point of view, that was ideal for Benjamin Netanyahu, because while in condemning those killings, he could link it to the comments of the leaders of Canada, France and Britain. I mean, it's purely coincidence, but he links it up and says, well, this is the sort of thing that your comments give rise to. And that's, I think, most reasonable people would think that's pretty ridiculous. But, I mean, he's doubling down on the offensive which the Israelis launched in March. I mean, they effectively broke the ceasefire. The ceasefire was already staggering, we have to say, and it was supposed to go into a new phase on the 1st of March. The Israelis said, well, forget that. We are launching a new offensive, which they have, and that offensive has now gone into a bigger phase now, and we're not really clear what they're trying to achieve. The right-wingers say that, well, we're going to take over Gaza. The IDF say, well, we're going to control Gaza, which is not quite the same thing.
But where these other countries are coming from, who have all publicly supported Israel's right to defend itself, it's all about proportionality. Yeah,
what they're saying is it's disproportionate. And that we understand that. You, Israel, you have a perfect legal right and a need to respond to Hamas. We don't mind at all. Destroy Hamas, because Hamas is a terrorist organisation. And undoubtedly, the Israeli response, they have destroyed Hamas as a military organisation, but they can't destroy Hamas politically, and they can't really get Hamas out of Gaza. They can't get the hold of Hamas over the population. There are some protests against Hamas that build up, particularly in the north of the Gaza Strip. But Hamas are brutal. I mean, they pick out the leaders of these people, they torture them to death, and then they throw their bodies in front of their families to show what happens. I mean, they've been doing this for years. They're a brutal organisation. And so that when the people of Gaza, as it were, try to throw Hamas out, they don't get very far because of the brutality. And this leads Western leaders to say, look, you're engaging in collective punishment by withholding humanitarian aid, which they've been doing now since the 1st of March. You are punishing the population in order to somehow to force them to deal with Hamas. You can't deal with it, the IDF, you can't stop Hamas being powerful. You expect us to stop it by starving us. And so the objection of Western countries, and it isn't just these 3 Western countries, the EU, remember, is reviewing its trade deal with Israel, just as Britain is reviewing at the moment its trade negotiations with Israel. So a lot of, at the outside world, Israel's friends are putting pressure on Netanyahu to say this latest offensive is simply disproportionate and it's not solving the problem that Hamas is still there. You've beaten them militarily, but they are still there and they still control the population of Gaza.
But Netanyahu very much signalling that he's not taking heed of those comments from...
No, he's doubling down because he's dependent on the right wingers in his cabinet, particularly Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who do sort of hold him in the palm of their hands. If they walk out, his government falls. And then, as his critics say, well, he'll be in front of he's already in court, but he'll end up in prison as well. And that he's continuing the war for the sake of staying in power. That's what they say. I mean, we can argue about whether that's fair or not, but that's what his critics say. And so he doubles down on the idea that now they're going to push the population of Gaza into the corner. And so, I mean, if you look at the map, I mean, Gaza is a very small territory. It's 5 miles wide, 30 miles long.
And this is the small area called Al-Mawasi, right?
Al-Mawasi, right, down on the southwest coast, which is just a bit of, there it is, yeah, just a bit of beachfront, really. There are no facilities there. I mean, if you push the population down into that southwest corner, even half of them, then you're asking for disease and so on.
And for months they've been trying to...
They have, yeah. And Al-Mawasi has been declared a safe area, but the Israelis have still bombed it. The tent camps that have grown up at Al-Mawasi, they've still bombed those camps when they think there's a Hamas leader there that they want to go after. So they've gone after them. And pushing them down there by the use of food, by saying, well, that's where the food will be, is regarded by the United Nations as ethnic cleansing. And the UN say, we won't go along with this because we'll be complicit in what looks like, or at least in principle, could be a war crime, so we won't do it. And the Israelis say, well, don't worry, we've got our own organisation, the Gaza Humanitarian Organisation, which is this new thing. It's supposed to start working from this weekend. And it's a group of companies, private companies, who will distribute aid in 4 particular places, which will have the effect of pulling the population to where the food is. Whether it works or not, we don't know. I mean, what the UN says, look, we're the organisation who know what we're doing. We've been doing it for years, and we've got a big enough outfit to actually distribute aid to everybody. There's 500 or 600 trucks they need every day. This new organisation is not properly staffed. It doesn't know what it's doing. It will be chaotic if you just hand it all over to this. Well, we'll see. I mean, a new, unproven organisation, nobody knows who's behind it. Nobody knows how many people they've got on the ground, if any, and it's supposed to start working from this weekend. I mean, like so many things in Israel's policy towards Gaza, however justified their response is, on the ground, it's chaotic, absolutely chaotic. And the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, are just going round in tactical circles. They are not producing anything like the effect that Netanyahu said they had to produce. He said, after October 7th, we must destroy Hamas. Well, what does that mean? Well, they haven't. They've reduced it militarily to nothing, but they can't destroy it politically. They've strengthened it politically, if anything.
All right, Michael, for now, thank you.